This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
All right, Nick King, Julia Lopez here on a Diamondbacks off day. 44 games into the season, which is frankly a little hard to believe that we just crossed the quarter way mark of the regular season. Good time to talk to Diamondbacks reporter, legend, longtime Diamondbacks reporter, Jody Jackson.
Wow, legend. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Julia.
In
Thanks
my
for having
eyes.
me. Yeah, 44 games already. It's kind of flying by.
It seems like it. And I was just taking a look at 44 games a year ago and 44 games now. And there's some subtle differences just on like the very basic stats. They're 4 games worse than they were last year at this time. Right now it's 21-23. Last year it was 25-19. And that 4 games is basically the difference between last year. They were 3.5 back of the Dodgers. Now they're 7.5 back. Is there anything, obviously the injuries have been massive. Is there anything that feels different to you outside of the injuries than a year ago? Is the vibe any different?
Well, the vibe is a little different, just different players coming in. I think the addition of, Eugenio Suarez and Jock Peterson and Randall Grichuk, they have been good additions. And then, of course, the guys that came in later in the season, like Paul Sewald. I mean, these are big personalities. These are guys you want to have in your clubhouse. And that's a good thing. I think the thing that hurts with the injuries, I guess if I separate it into pitching with Merrill Kelly being gone, Eduardo Rodriguez, unfortunately, even though he signed a 4-year, $80 million deal, he really has been, we don't know what this team looks like with him because he hasn't been healthy yet as an addition. So I'll just go with Merrill there, not having Merrill. And then, again, those speedy young guys, you have Corbin there and he's struggling. You have Alec really didn't get to play hardly at all this season. He was injured early on. And Geraldo Perdomo. So, and they still have Jake McCarthy. You still have some of those guys that can create that chaos and everything that you love to see. I think the Christian Walker-Cattell Marte vibe is awesome, and it has been for the last few years. And so you just want to keep that going. And those guys, they have their own way to lead and they have their own veteran presence, and you do love that. But yeah, it hurts when you don't have that identity, which was coming on. We didn't really know early in the season how it was going to play out, but it was looking pretty good. And I think they were surprising a lot of people with what they were doing in the base paths. And so, yeah, the stolen bases have been down without some of those guys. If Corbin's not getting on base, Corbin's healthy, but he's not getting on base. So I think they really missed that Alec-Jerry combo at the bottom. And then, Corbin has to get rolling here at some point, or at least improve from what he's doing right now.
And there's probably no way to separate the vibe and how things are this year without, most of it is injury based. So that all makes sense.
Yeah, and Jody, Tori talked about the update about Alec Thomas not being really close to coming back just yet. What can you say about Geraldo? Can we see him out there pretty soon?
He seems to be coming along really well. His, surgery with the meniscus it sounds like it was pretty simple, nothing crazy in there, just a little repair, and he's coming back. So he's starting to do those baseball activities. He's starting to hit, which is great. I don't know as much as with the field work. I don't think they're really putting a lot of pressure on him to get going with that. They're taking it slow, or they're taking it, about according to the speed you normally would. So I'm a little unsure of exactly when he's coming back, but I think early June. So that's coming along pretty quickly. That's going to help. It is disappointing, Julia, you're right, with Alec Thomas, who was ready to join the team in Cincinnati, and he felt a little something in there, and it sounds like it's going to be another couple weeks at least. And so with him, we're thinking, is it going to be mid-June? Is it going to be late June? I don't really know. But Perdomo, will be welcome out there to do what he does so well in the field and, in the box, always doing a great job, either taking his walks or getting a hit. And, of course, adding that infectious energy that he can do when he's on the IL, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah. You mentioned Corbin, which has obviously been such a talking point this season, and the struggles were real. And then it felt like, was it not a week and a half ago, he had 5 RBI. And it was kind of a string of games where we saw him hitting the ball hard, and it was like, okay, think we're turning a corner. And then maybe the last week it's like, okay, maybe we didn't quite turn the corner. He's such a fascinating guy to me to go through this because, from talking to him, like he might take 5, 10, 15 seconds to answer a question, like to just sit there and think about it, and just like a very heady kind of guy. What have you been able to gauge about like how he's handling this and whether it's been, more difficult on him maybe because he is such a heady guy?
I think it's taking a toll on him, but that shouldn't come as a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like any player that is struggling. They take this very seriously. It's their job, it's their career. And then you have Corbin, who, you're right, Nick, he's very cerebral. He's very much a perfectionist in a game where you can't really be perfect, especially not as a hitter, What is that? Nick's perfectionist?
Yeah, I would put him in the same category.
That's like, we talk for a living. Who can talk perfectly every time, right? Like, who even knows what that is?
I've tried to accept that, but yeah.
I know, certainly I don't. There'll be times when, whoa, I can't wait till I can talk again here because I got to remedy whatever I just did a little cleaner. But that's what makes life kind of fun, too. We have to recognize that. But for Corbin, because last year was no fluke. He did it over a whole season. He did it even, if you take the 32 games from 2022, he did it, granted in the postseason, everything's harder to come by, and yet he had a great Game 7 in Philadelphia. So, you hit 25 home runs, that's no accident. You bat 285, that's really good. You steal all those bases, over 50 bases, and none of this is a fluke, and yet I think he knows he still has a lot to prove, even after winning National League Rookie of the Year. And so what I've gathered is that, and I don't know the details of all of this, but I'll try to make it as quick as I can, in that I think he wanted to improve in the offseason, and he wanted to get even better, hit for a better average, do different things at the plate. He wasn't striking out a ton, but he wanted to cut down the strikeouts. And I think there was a lot that he wanted to do with his swing. And I think in spring training, because I watched a lot of those games, and then certainly coming out of the gate, it wasn't really what he, wasn't working out great. And it was normal, right? Okay, we're starting slow in April. That's okay. We've all seen that. Paul Goldschmidt used to start slow into May, even at times.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's prolonged. And he let us in the other day in a clubhouse interview that I'm sure you guys heard as well, a little window into what's going on. And he said, it was getting too flat. Now I have to get it more vertical. And then he said, last year when I was in a slump, which we all remember, that was in August. And he said, I was just swinging at everything to get out of it, and it worked. This year, that's not working. So it gave us a little bit of insight. I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg. He's in there every day. He's working. I've watched the batting practice, and you can see when he has a batting practice session that isn't great, isn't what he really wanted, he's not squaring the ball up, you can see a little bit of that wearing on him. And yet, people wonder, is he okay? Is he all right? I think he's okay. This is baseball. It's hard. It's difficult. And so I do agree. Yes, he looked really good for a couple game stretch there, but it takes more than that in this game. And, I think he's going to be okay, but where are the numbers going to land at the end of the season? I am not sure. Is there another point in time where he's going to get hot? Yes, I believe he will. It's just, is he going to be able to get hot for a stretch, a long enough stretch that can really impact this team in a very, very positive way? I get too nerdy here, but expected batting average last year was lower. It was 268. He batted higher than that. This year, he's batting 193 right now as we sit here on this off day, Thursday, whatever day it is, May. I don't even know what day it is anymore.
16th. 16th, yeah.
I'm getting ahead of myself. And so this year it's 193 and the expected is 238. So, I hate to get into all of this and that, but yeah, there's been a few balls he's hit hard. He's not hitting them as hard as he did last year consistently. We can see that. And then yet we do get very excited when he does, hit a couple balls hard, whether they get caught or not. And everything he does right now is under the microscope. And so that's why I think we cannot declare this or that about Corbin Carroll. Is he this? Is he back? Is he not? It's just going to be an ebb and a flow, I think. But hopefully it will look better and better as this season goes on, because it is already mid-May.
Mm-hmm.
On social media, a lot of people are talking about Corbin Carroll's sophomore slump. I don't believe that he's going to be going through that. I think he's just too good of a player. He's too talented naturally. I think he's going to absolutely get out of it as well. I think a lot of people are just kind of going overboard with the sophomore slump of Corbin Carroll. He's just too good.
It is a little, I get the fans' perspective, which is that, you go to the World Series last year, and I said this last year too, there were a lot of factors in that, but Corbin Carroll was the thread through the season. I mean, the guy would come up in the 8th and 9th, clutch hit, the stolen bases, the defense, the whole thing. He's still playing good defense, It's hard to replace Alec Thomas for sure, right? Because he is so good, but, Corbin's been very good out there. But, I think it is something where the fans look and say, what's going on? Are we nervous? Is this guy the player that we think he's going to be? But yeah, everyone knows that the tools that he has, they will play. And it's just a matter of, he's in a bit of a slump right now. And I think it does get a little mental at times. In the beginning, it was kind of like, well, are they just pitching to him a little differently? And now I think it's a little deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something where he just has to find a groove at the plate. He has to find that angle with the bat that he's looking for consistently. And, because analysts talk a lot about that long stride that he has. He's a very unique player, and there's a lot of moving parts with that swing and that stride. But again, I agree with you, Julia. I think that, he'll get back on track. It's hard to watch when you see a player coming off such a great year and you just kind of assume, okay, you don't expect those numbers maybe to duplicate, but I think we all expected him to do as well or better based on his striving to be great as he does so much. And right now, that's why you're seeing him get some days off and things, because people want him to just relax a little bit more. His coaches want him to be able to relax a little bit more, because I think that's going to feed into him playing better than being stressed out about this.
Ultimately, it's a good thing too that, like, I think more people care, more people are invested in this team watching after the World Series run, which takes me to a random question here, because I'm probably watching more Diamondbacks baseball than the first couple of years I lived here. But, and maybe a lot of this is Alec Thomas's, him not being there. Jody, Jake and Lourdes almost collided last night or yesterday afternoon in the game. And I was like, my God, that is like the 6th time that I've seen these guys. I mean, Jake and Corbin did collide. And since then, there's been like 4 or 5 more times that I've been watching where either center and left or center and right nearly collide. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen an outfield with this many issues there. Has that, again, random, has that struck you at all?
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I was just talking to one of our camera people about that today, because she's in the outfield, and we were talking about that play. And, center field always has kind of control of what's going on out there. And I know the one play that happened with Corbin, he kind of admitted, I need to be louder. So that, everything's been a little bit different. Like, that one was, okay, Corbin, you need to be louder. That's fine. But then the other day you're wondering, like, does Jake, I get it, you need control of the center field situation, and you expect that guy to get to the ball, but Lourdes looked to be in position as well. So you see them when they come back to the dugout talking about it. I think, Nick, you're right. This is an issue, and they do need to talk about it a little bit more. And, they're coached to handle those situations a certain way. And I think that's why Jake McCarthy did do that. But I think Dave McKay and those outfielders just need to continue to converse to try to avoid this, because it is a bit of an issue. You'd hate to see somebody go down and a collision happen. And I think now, because they are aware of it so much, what you'd also hate to see is where they don't collide and just no one gets the ball. So that's not good either. And but yeah, it's an issue. I might dig into that a little bit more tomorrow and say, okay, guys, what's going on with this? Because this is not a great situation.
Good. We'll be looking for that.
Yeah. And now we got to talk about the bullpen too. Obviously, Paul Sewald being back, that's huge for the Diamondbacks. What do you like what you've seen so far with him? I know it's early, it's just a few games in with him, but do you like how he's performing so far?
I do. I think he's going to be what we expect from Paul Sewald, which is the good fastball, the good slider. And when you see him, I know in spring he was working on a changeup, and that's something that I think right now he's just trying to stick with his bread and butter and do what, really made the Diamondbacks trade for him, which is, that presence and that calm that he brings in the ninth inning. And it's not always going to be perfect. No closer is. There's very few that get through the season without, some wild ninth innings and all of that. Yesterday was real nice and clean from everyone, which was always good. I told Brandon Webb, I said, this is either going to come at us real quick because we go from the press box and then down. I actually am by the dugout for the first 6 innings. Then I go up, discuss the post game. Then we come down, kind of run out onto the field. And I thought, this is going to come at us really quick, or it's going to be extra innings. And sure enough, it came on us quick.
Yeah.
And it's never a bad thing, but a 159, which actually was funny to me because Brandon Webb was the owner of 2 of those fastest games in D-backs history. But yeah, Paul Sewald, no drama there. Ryan Thompson was good as well. But, Paul, he's a guy that brings that experience. And he said he's learned some of the troubles that he had in his career. And now he's on a great path. And now he's a guy that we've seen is almost like a glue. When he came into the clubhouse in Cincinnati, it just seemed like, and look, the Reds have been struggling. So I get that. But yeah, it immediately created a situation where, due to many factors, they swept the Reds. Paul was back. Mm-hmm. Everyone was happy. And then we get to see the jump around yesterday too, right? They've been waiting on that one. They were waiting to roll out. I saw that Game Ops was rehearsing it on Monday. So I was kind of waiting, okay, I want to see this in a game. So it happened on Wednesday.
I think Ryan Thompson, by the way, is borderline all-star material. His numbers have been incredible. I think he's only allowed 2 runs in 18 innings pitched. And he's just he's just going to get guys out. It's going to be a lot of ground balls and a lot of flyouts, but he's just going to plow through it. But the intro video that I've actually most enjoyed this season has been Kevin Ginkel's. And now I'm drawing a blank on who it is. I think it's a Rage Against the Machine song, and it's.
I'm blanking as well. Honestly, I know it's kind of like a rock. He's a rock guy.
It's real hardcore, and he comes in, and it's been all right, hell yeah, this is a guy who was lights out in the postseason, and that has not been the case, and maybe it's just another part of this early season microscope coming off the World Series, and any pitcher is going to go through, especially relievers are going to go through some moments, but I think he's allowed to run in 3 of his last 4 outings or something like that.
He's been clipped by a couple of homers too. And so, I talked to him actually in the clubhouse before the game because there was this, Tori had tipped us off that, Brent Strom was up all night looking at video and all that. And Kevin Ginkel said to me, he goes, yeah, he does not sleep. And I'm thinking, okay, he's 75. We love him. He does not seem like 75. So I always say 75 years young with Stromy, but he just does not rest if anything is not going smooth out there. And that's what coaches are for. But I don't know if there's anyone that's done it better. We say that a lot of the time. And there's people that have been covering this game, longer than I have, but he's unbelievable. So he found something with Kevin. Kevin was working on. He was explaining to me, and these guys are you guys know when you're in the clubhouse and you talk to pitchers especially, or a hitter about their swing, everything's technical. Mm-hmm. If their foot is not landing in the right spot or the weight is not distributed properly, which is something that was happening with Kevin, that throws them off. It changes the direction of the pitch. It can be a small, it's just that little bit of location. And you could see those pitches were middle. So that's a problem, right? You can't do that. And so hopefully he'll get a chance here against Detroit and he'll be able to fix that.
So Strami's identified something. So that's possibly something we'll see this weekend. Cool. Be looking out for that.
I have to wonder with Strami though, and you guys are in there and I know you're listening to, do you ever wonder, is Strami, sometimes is it a placebo effect? It's all right, I found something. and you're like, okay. And because he knows how mental this game is too. So you can definitely identify things. They're real things, but as to the magnitude of what they do for you, and you wonder, okay, so he fixed that, but also does he now go in with this confidence okay, Strami fixed me. I'm good.
Didn't he move Mad Bum from one side of the rubber to the other at one point? And I'm not sure that really. Unfortunately,
not anything worked with Mad Bum. Not a lot of things worked there, but he tried, and he tried mightily. And with Brendan Pfaadt, though, same thing. He moved him, and that's been something that stuck. But, again, there's a lot of other things that Brandon Pfaadt has done well to get him. I love the Brandon Pfaadt story so far because he struggled so badly last year in the beginning when he first came up, giving up homers. And to see him now, I think it's a great lesson for anybody in the game, any level. And you can just say, here's video of Brandon Pfaadt last year when he first came up, and then here he is now. And I understand he is a world-class athlete and he is very talented, has a great arm and can manipulate the ball. But at whatever level people are at, to me, you can learn something there.
He's been awesome.
Yeah,
it was fun to watch yesterday.
So dynamic, that slider, sweeper, and then mixing in. I think the key was now none of these guys are throwing. I think the Strami effect is everybody's got, since he's come on, everyone's added either a sinker or a slider. I mean, Justin Martinez is a great example. This guy wasn't even throwing a sinker last year. And now the sinker is the one that he throws the most.
Wow.
And the four seam was getting hit, and now he's throwing that less, the splitter. I mean, it just seems to be a great recipe there. And everyone I know in spring training, I know Strami was big on working with a lot of guys on a slider. Guys that weren't throwing it that much were refining it, making it better. And it feels like every year there's a little bit. Last year, he identified, he's big on all of these things. They work for different guys in different ways. But last year, it was a big emphasis on using the high fastball. And, and that's none of this stuff is new, but it's just emphasis, right? It's being aware of what do you have, what tools do you have, and what can you do? So, yeah, it's pretty fun to watch, and he's great to listen to. I know you guys have spoken to him as well. He's a lot of fun to listen to.
I was just going to ask, is he your favorite person to talk to, or is there someone else around?
He probably is. Yeah, he really is. I know Julia Morales, who covers the Astros, when he came over in 2022, she's like, you're going to love Strami. You just, and so it's funny, like when she and I were on kind of a girls trip in the off season, and we're just like, we're talking about our Strami stories, and like, he's the best, you do these long interviews, and there's not any part of it that isn't very, very interesting, and sometimes you wonder, like, he's very no filter too, and so that's pretty cool. Not that this coaching staff has just so much wisdom. You're like, Torrey's been in the game all his life, and Torrey has great wisdom. And then you've got Banny, who's even been doing it longer, and then Strami, and you're thinking, not to mention all the, really all the coaches, and they've all been together now. So they're all fun to talk to, but yeah, it's hard to top Brent Strom.
So who's your favorite player then on the Diamondbacks that you like talking to?
Gosh, there's a few. Let's see. I'm trying to think of Christian Walker is so insightful. So, it's not always not a guy that's necessarily going to joke around all the time, because he is pretty serious about his job. But when he says some things about certain games or even his teammates, it's very insightful and it's very interesting to listen to. Paul Sewald's always great. I kind of feel like, this is interesting because you guys may not expect this one, but Jock Peterson is hilarious to me. And you don't always see it in the interviews, but just in his way around the clubhouse. I don't know if I'm trying to figure out as the reporter how fans can see a little bit more of this with him, but he's just like a big kid. He keeps everybody loose. He's having fun out there. I talked to Dave McKay the other day about him running the bases, because that's something that he really wants to get better at, and he has. He's getting on base a lot. He's hitting the ball hard all the time, and and Dave McKay said, he's really getting better. He's trying hard at that. So
he came into the clubhouse during spring training, his first day, on a scooter. So that
on a hoverboard.
A hoverboard. Oh, there you go. That's even
scared
better.
Me ever since the days my kids were little when those came out, and it's like everyone said they were going to explode. So
yeah.
I just have tried to stay away from those.
All right, Joe, how much time do we have left on the recording? 2 minutes. All right, Jody, last question. To kind of circle back where we started, your kind of belief that this team still has a lot of the magic that we saw in October in them as we get along through this summer. How much belief is there still?
I do believe that this team can get back to a point where they're winning series all the time, go on a winning streak. And I don't necessarily even think that they have to wait for the guys who are injured to come back. I just think they haven't clicked. That will help, though. There's no doubt about it. Perdomo, Alec Thomas, Merrill Kelly, eventually Eduardo Rodriguez, they're all going to help out. But, you know, we have to see it soon, because you look at the other records right now, and it doesn't mean the Dodgers record. We're not talking about some of these, but you see these teams and you think, okay, they're racking up wins at a pretty good clip. So there is a little bit of urgency there now, no question, that they need to get on this a lot quicker than we've seen it. And I think we have seen some signs. But you got Detroit, then you go to LA. I mean, it's got to happen quicker. They're playing better baseball. They had some things a little bit early in the season that I think were indicative of some new pieces on a team, and that hurt them. But you know, that was early April, and so I think we've seen them play better baseball. And I am hopeful. I'm hopeful that there's a lot of really good D-backs baseball ahead, and we'll land them in a playoff spot.
Right on. Jody Jackson, watch you this weekend and the rest of the season. Appreciate the insight. That was fun.
It was. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Julia.
You're one of the best. Thank you, Jody. Appreciate you.
This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.